What's up, guys? Welcome back to Pete's Basement, where Steve was trapped in the box that time. Lots happened over the past 2 weeks, and right off the bat, you know the first one is Captain America.
Yes.
What do we think, boys?
It's the best comic book from Marvel right now.
Guaranteed.
Absolutely. I can't. You know, when I went to pick it up the day it came out, the line inside Midtown Comics went wrapped around inside the store twice.
Wow.
Midtown Comics is 2 floors for those who are not in the New York City area. It is a mammoth store. It was packed. They had camera crews. It was treated like fucking Jesus' bar mitzvah. It was packed to the gills.
Which I heard was well received.
Very well received at the time. They're a blue collar family. They didn't have much to celebrate with,
right.
but I heard the DJ was good, so I was happy with it.
And he knew what they liked. That's right.
It's a good point. This fantastic.
I didn't want to take the chance of even going to Midtown or trying to get to the city on that Wednesday to pick it up, so I actually just went on midtowncomics.com and I ordered myself 2 copies just in case they wound up selling out. I did break my rule again, and I bought the variant cover, but I bought the variant cover because it was Alex Ross, and he doesn't do limited edition variant covers. There was a 50-50 draw. You can get whichever you please, and honestly, both covers were really good. Yeah. Epting does a really nice job with the suit.
Juice on the inside, man. I haven't seen him do any work in a long time, man. Him and Epting go together fucking fantastic.
It was a great ride getting there.
The artwork is fucking great. Yeah. Brubaker killed it with the fucking storyline. It's probably the best run Captain America's had since
one of the best lines I really thought was when they explained the new costume. Yep. When Bucky said, "No, I'm not Steve. I'll never be Steve. I'm different."
And and a good follow-up to that in the story. Spoiler alert: he kneecaps a bunch of fucking guys.
That was great.
That was kneecaps them. Not even subtle. Just shoots everybody in the kneecap.
Throws the shield, misses it. They're like, you ain't Captain. Blah!
Yeah, you got to appreciate a guy who can kneecap with these. You know, this was a great opening. Really happy with it. Cannot wait to see where the storyline goes. But as much as this was a week for beginnings, it was also a week for endings, which leads us to
a sad point.
The end of Y, The Last Man. You know, I'm going to tell you something, perhaps not surprisingly. My wife started reading this one, thinking that somewhere in the great world of fantasy there was a utopia where people with testicles would either shut up or not exist. And this was it for her.
Well, women screwed it up as much, if not more, as men did.
So I don't know anything about Y, The Last Man.
Brian K. Vaughan put out this great, concept of, how it's all men sit around all day saying, it'd be great if I was the last man on earth. How much pussy would I get then? No. Throughout this whole story, the main character, Yorick, has gotten his ass whipped left to right by every woman on the planet. Yeah. It's been a great storyline. There's not been a single arc that hasn't been accessible. And it ends on a great note. Okay, no spoilers. It's got a little bit of a Sopranos ending, but I don't think that's going to ruin it for anyone. If you just pick this up as a standalone story, it's a good science fiction story. The arc by Pierre Guerra, still very good.
That's the last issue. How many numbers are there total?
I think it's a 60-issue run.
Yeah,
60-issue run.
That's not that bad,
yeah, and he's not planning to make any spin-offs. There is a movie work in the process.
And Brian K. Vaughan has gone on to, he's now writing for Lost, for all you fans out there. This is getting a look at some of the other writing from a very talented young guy. But as far as endings, we did miss an ending from a prior week.
Hold on now. Because while we bring up Messiah Complex, I still have not read it. I have all 13 issues. I'm going to read it now, but I'm going into the sensory deprivation booth to avoid any spoilers of the ending.
We don't use subtitles, so I'll just translate. He's going to go masturbate in the bathroom while looking at old issues of Wizard. We're going to refer to the rest of my Yeah, don't let him go without his ammo. Yeah. That's not fair. So, Messiah Complex. It finished its run. What are we talking?
Well, I was looking at the back. All the comics that are coming up after that, and I'm interested in them. I don't know, like, you got X-Force coming out, we got Cable having his own series, and Professor X getting it,
I don't think it's a spoiler at this point. The news is a week old. I thought,
he got shot, but he's not dead. I mean,
he's in a coma. That's what they're going to be using the other. That's what they're going to be using the other titles for. X-Men Legacy is going to cover him being in some kind of a fucking coma and recollecting all the old adventures and shit. Young X-Men. I don't know.
It's Young X-Men.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. Some of the characters they're throwing into that look pretty fucking chump. Yeah. But otherwise, they actually pulled it off, man. Cyclops suddenly grew up there, and that to me almost feels like...
I noticed you mentioned that a lot.
You know what? I like Men in Tights. I'm not going to lie. It's my main draw for these comic books. Where does that donut come from? Where did that come from? How do you have donut?
No question you should never ask.
You didn't have a donut like 5 minutes ago.
That frightens me. There's like mystery donuts. Okay. Messiah Complex, though, ended on a good note. I feel like the kid at this point was almost like a red herring. I feel like when they're talking to Messiah Complex, they were really talking about Cyclops throughout this whole thing.
Yeah.
He came out the other end a bad motherfucker, and I feel like as long as they can keep that character going and don't turn him into like Frank Miller's Batman, it'll be good. You know what I mean? Where he's walking around saying like, I'm Cyclops, bitch. You know, which
we don't want to go too far into that direction.
Yeah. I mean, I think that right now, I think it's a good line. It's a good fresh start. I think they've created a great jump-on point for anybody out there who wants to read any of the X titles. I think the new stuff is going to be good. I think it's got great potential.
And Marvel's finishing the event decently, unlike World War Hawk.
Yeah, you know, some people will say that they thought this ended a little bit soft. You know, I've heard that complaint.
This ended a little bit soft?
Yeah, I've heard some people saying that they thought that, you know, the way they got rid of Bishop was chump, that the whole thing with, you know, Professor X was a little light in the wrist. I thought, overall, they pulled it off. They
shot in the head, didn't they?
Apparently, it's not good enough. He also needed to be kicked
once
in the groin.
He's died before.
At least, well, you know, he has. He's died a million times. So at least this time they didn't pretend with that shit. Yeah. You know,
but he fell further down now because he's standing. When he was in the chair, he fell. It wasn't as bad. But now that he's standing,
when he comes out, I just want to know that he's still going to be in a wheelchair and that he's developed some sort of horrible wheelchair and a speech impediment. That will leave me satisfied. I want to hear a stutter and a lisp.
Excellent.
Me and my I think that would be worth it. I feel like I'd be satisfied knowing that there was some consequence.
Yeah, I would have a lawyer. We have a lawyer. We wouldn't need one after this segment.
Well, one of the voices in my head moonlights, but that's about it. You know, while we're in the realm of X-Men, you know what? Let's call Pete back. You think he's finished? It can't take him that long to rub one out.
I don't know.
I mean, you know, the way they draw fucking Wonder Woman these days
is pretty big. I don't know.
It's a good point.
I'll look at it.
1981. Greece joins the European community. Margaret Thatcher reshuffles her cabinet. The first DeLorean rolls off its assembly line in Dunmurry, Northern Ireland. Ronald Reagan becomes the 40th President of these United States. And it snows in Palermo, Sicily. Chris Claremont's X-Men is the title to beat, and John Byrne's artwork is considered trend-setting for the period. Yet despite Chris Claremont and John Byrne's storytelling technique, which treated its readership like adults, DC and Marvel, the two main comic book companies at the time, continued to assume that the readership of their comic books was still children or young male adults, an unfortunate stereotype that persists to this day because most of fandom looks like this. Enter Nexus. Originally published by Capitol Comics in 1981, a little-known company based out of the Midwest, writer Mike Barron and artist Steve Rude set about creating a universe that was one part Jack Vance, one part Jack Kirby, and a whole lot of Jack Daniels. This was a comic book for adults. Following the haunted figure of Horatio Hellpop, a man living alone on a dead rock called Ilum, rotating around a dying star about 400 years from now. Hellpop is a pacifist. Unfortunately, he's a pacifist haunted by nightmares of mass murderers, whose crimes, no matter how well hidden, are known to him. The nightmares are so bad that they threaten to kill him unless he responds, by getting up, going out, and killing the people he's had these nightmares about. He is the most haunted, self-hating character I've ever encountered in comic books before or after. The fact that he is a pacifist, he's a very moral figure, but has to go out and commit horrible acts, sometimes in front of these people's families, breaks him apart. The comic book opens with him living on this rock, surrounded by a cult of the people he has saved, and yet he still wants nothing to do with them, because while they worship him, he recognizes that he's no better than the people that he has killed himself. He's presented as having almost limitless power, no idea where they came from, and these nightmares just assail him constantly. And as a pacifist, he has to live with the fact that his first victim was in fact his own father. Steve Rude is a student of the Alex Toth School of Illustration. He is very, very much inspired by the sort of Hanna-Barbera aesthetic, Space Ghost. So the whole comic book has this very cartoonish, innocent aesthetic. And while it's obvious I like Steve Rude's artwork, I obviously glow with fucking fanboy pride over Mike Barron's writing, which had some great original concepts, whether it's using these severed heads as sources of power, and then, or the Gucci Assassins Guild, or the modern Luddites over in the Cult of Elvon. And I'm not going to lie, these all sound really dorky, but they're these just great concepts that just keep recurring throughout it and clearly plumb the depth.